Yeah, moving on to chapter 16. It's just one of them things. I started it, and I almost got it finished, and I can't get it out of my mind. So I'm getting ready to kick off chapter 16 with a little KRS-One to kick things off. Fucking 20-2. Mountain Time, west of the Rockies. Learn. Fuck racism. I'm not done yet. Getting there. I'm dropping bombs on your mom like Vietnam.
Hey Google, open YouTube.
Opening YouTube. Who could have known that the smallest changes could make the biggest impact? You did. And so did we. That's why Hills always starts with a pet's biology. So you're always a step ahead.
I folks. I'm gonna do this thing. Chapter 16 in the fucking middle of the night. Fucking slept a couple hours. Can't stop thinking about a lot of things.
Stood still on a highway. I saw by the side of the road with a face that I knew like my own, reflected in my window. Well, she walked up to my quarter light and she backed down real slow. A fearful pressure paralyzed me in my shadow. She said, son, what are you doing here? My fear for you has turned me in my grave. I said, Mama, I've come to the valley of the rich, myself to sell. She said, son, this is the road to hell.
Alright, here we go. Moving on. Moving up. Hang out with $1 Million Man. it was at the middle of April by the time Jorge had enough work lined up. I still owed Doug the $400 for the ounce of blow, and it had been 3 weeks since we talked. I told him that I will hook up on some pounds and he will get his money. When Jorge finally hooked up with another connection, he brought me 22 pounds. I sold enough weed in Tucson to have expense money for Tom and I to make it back to Iowa. Needing to settle the score with Doug, I stopped over at the house without calling, or at his house without calling. I figured he wouldn't care since I owed him money. He gladly accepted half a pound and $100 cash, knowing the profit selling the weed would be greater than the debt. I wouldn't be able to make a big sale to my cash buyer. My profits would be higher if I had pieced it out at a higher price. I was into Jorge for $650 a pound plus $4,400 owed from the last deal. Minimum price was set at $9.50 per pound when I got to Iowa. I knew Murph would be good for 10 pounds, and I could move the other 11 myself. Mike Bell had been after me to make a deal with a friend he had worked with. I kept telling him when I had the extra and was sure about the people, we would do it. There was not a better time than now to set this up. Turned out those people Mike Bell knew had some large money. You would never know it by looking at them. I called them the country boys. But these country boys had sacks full of cash. These guys had been selling The guys I'd been selling larger quantities of bud were pissed at me just because I couldn't meet their demand. Coming back 2 times and not calling them, they no longer wanted to do business with me. The country boys were buying 10 pounds. I didn't have a problem with the rest. I probably could have sold the whole 21 pounds to the country boys, but I wanted to feel them out. After doing the 10-pound deal with Mike, I could see they were for real. As we counted the $9,500, it kept coming up $100 over the amount, testing me to see if I'd count it, to see if I was honest. First thing that Mike lets out is, "Cool, extra $100, let's get a gram," meaning coke. $100 was the going rate for a gram. I replied, "No, that's not how you do business. We can do coke anytime. Tonight is business." They implied that they were ready when I came back, so not all was lost. Mike would get $500 for every 10 pounds, being the middleman. Not bad for 2 hours work. In this business, there is no hourly rate, and for the hours I put in learning how to be a weed smuggler were finally paying off. Whoever said crime didn't pay was wrong. Shit, I fucking right. So it's crazy. When I wrote this, I was still moving 2 pounds a week, just with a couple people. So when I probably I had probably 5 solid outlets to sell weed to: Murph, Frankie, Sean Moley, the country boys, and Mike Bell. I lost Jermaine due to the debt he owed me. With him, it was like chasing bad money with good money, and I couldn't afford to deal with more debt. Never making the big deal with Bobby Caesar and Joey didn't affect my ability to move weed. This is what I did, and this is what I did best. I lived on the edge. After quitting my job over 6 months back, from my back, I hadn't talked to my parents since then. They were good Catholic people and brought me up that way. Doing what I did was something they would not understand. Hell, my mom worked for the IRS, and my old man taught junior high school history. If I ever got popped, they would live in disgrace over me. They wouldn't understand. The recognition I received by for getting by and putting money in my friends' pockets was priceless. It became my life. Putting food on my friends' tables, breaking a sweat, punching a clock every day was the last thing on my mind. We headed back to Tucson after a week. Jorge was all smiles. He brought Frank over with him to collect the 2,000 I set aside to pay him back. Frank didn't promise any more weed or any more work though. He said he would have to wait until the debt was paid off in full, all of it. Once again, Jorge came through with another 20 pounds for another connection. I still had enough cash to get back to Iowa, this time in Tom's car. My car was back in Des Moines, suffering engine problems. It would be fixed when I got back. For now, we used Tom's car. Tom went everywhere I went, agreeing to watch my back for $1,000 a month plus bonus. Not to say I needed him. Not to say I needed him in order to get the job done. It just evolved that way. Deciding to drop the bundle in a sleeping bag and put it in the back seat, then pile clothes on top, and whatever else was my plan. I felt Tom's car, a Volkswagen Rabbit, looked a little suspicious due to the rust and bent fender. If a trooper pulled us over for not looking how he looked, all he had to do was open the trunk. So we packed the trunk full and piled clothes on a cooler on top of the sleeping bag. Wouldn't you know it, 10 miles east of Flagstaff, an Arizona trooper pulled us over for speeding. Don't get nervous, dude. Just tell him straight and we'll be on our way, I said. Got you going 70 and a 60. Can I see your license and registration? The officer said. He went back and ran the numbers on Tom. I had I had no outstanding warrants and had never been arrested for my ID either. I looked forward the whole time, only glancing over to my side view mirror. My hands sweated, but for no reason to be paranoid except for the 20 pounds in the back seat. As he approached the car, I could see that he had a clipboard with him. Cool. He's just going to give us a ticket, I thought. Tom didn't start Tom, just don't start fumbling your words, I thought. Tom knew if he produced his military ID along with his driver's license, the cop would not be suspicious. It worked. Mr. Reynolds, where are you coming from? The officer asked. There was. Just say the right thing, Tom. Come on. Just moving back from San Diego. Been out of the Marines 8 months. Got discharged and moving back home, Tom said, spontaneously. Just watch your speed, the trooper said, and we were on our way. Close call. So I just got lucky, or was it careful planning and not giving probable cause to the patrolman was the reason? I'd like to think a little bit of both. Cop had no reason to search the car. Never had a problem the rest of the way back to Iowa. It was becoming routine. I hustled the deal in 3 days. This time, I ran the operation from Tom's parents' house. They were out of town for 3 weeks. Set in a nice suburban home, my operation needed a change of venue. Things were getting out of hand over at the house by Drake. Figured it would take the heat off the house if any was around. This time, back in Iowa, I would not be calling the Iowa City boys. My main competition in Iowa City and Murph's other supplier, Bill Emanuel, had just gotten popped. He got pinched coming back from Texas. Got pulled over in Missouri with a friend, Kurt Staton, along with the guy I went to high school with. Murph had gave this guy $9,500 up front. No, excuse me. Murph gave the guy $3,500 up front for 5 pounds. And when the word coming back to Iowa was that they had come to me in Tucson to buy the weed, and I didn't know Murph had told Bill anything about my operation. So I hadn't seen Staton since Dowling, and overheard by Tony DeFranco at a coke dealer's house. They were coming back from the Lagos brothers, associating my brother in the situation. So the word was that this guy came out to Arizona, was Murph's money, got some weed from me, and he got popped, and I was at fault. So Tony was really adamant about me not dealing with Murph. He didn't want to see me get set up. Described to me by Tony, these guys from Iowa City were spewing the story, not knowing Tony and I were close friends. Fuck, I'd never met Bill Emanuel, but his association with Murph connected me. But I guess we did go to high school, me and this Bill Emanuel. I didn't hang out with him, and maybe I smoked a bowl with him or sold him some weed. I don't fucking know. So, things were good with the country boys. They stopped over with a paper sack of $1,000 bundles and took 15 pounds. Mike got his $500 cut. Frankie was now up to me 2 pounds cash at a time. Telling him time and time again I would increase the amount anytime he wanted. All he had to do was ask. In no time, the cash was in my hand, and my car had yet to get fixed. I talked to Jorge and told him briefly, and he told me to fly back as soon as possible with the cash. All the driving I had done, it was a relief to get back on an airplane again. The day I was leaving, I got in my car. I'd already bought the plane ticket. Gotta go solo next time, Tom. See you in a couple weeks. Didn't know when. Probably Memorial Day weekend in 3 weeks. Perfect time to travel, I said to Tom as he dropped me off at the check-in. After paying off Jorge in full for the 20 pounds and reducing my debt another $500, we struck a deal for $1,500 on the Tornado. Only problem, it was in Iowa. Not wanting to use the airlines to get my load back, I decided to take the Greyhound. Too paranoid to show my face at the Tucson airport again. 32 hours on a bus would be hell. 32 hours in hell is what I call it. The bus on Memorial Day was to arrive at 9 a.m. When it came time to claim my suitcase, it wasn't on the bus. Keep it cool, man. Don't overreact, I told myself. Next bus from Kansas City comes in at 4:30. The claim check lady told me, fuck it. And now I had to wait 7 hours to see if I'd get busted or if I'd end up with a lost bag. Tony D Tom and I headed to Clearwater Beach for the day. I was pretty blasted and sunburned by the time I went back to the station. Figured it was now or never. I produced my claim check, and the clerk produced my suitcase. With a smile on my face and 20 pounds in the suitcase, another successful run. This time the country boys would buy 15 pounds, and they wanted to do the deal at a motel room. The plan was for us to call them at a specified phone number once we got to the room. Mike told them where the motel was at, and they agreed on the location. Mike was to call them with the room number. I had him drive us over in Cindy's grandpa's van. Easier access to the weed when we needed it. Having it all pre-weighed in 1 pound bags, the transaction would be fast. Last thing I wanted to do was wait in the motel room with the weed. Mike and I must have waited for an hour from the time they called. You know, once this deal's done, I'm not staying in this room tonight, I said. This waiting shit is making me nervous, I told Mike. Don't be paranoid, Bell said. I won't be as soon as the deal's done, and them country boys are long gone. We kept the volume low on the TV so we could hear the sounds in the hallway. Suddenly, the sound of 2 drunken guys, stupor, approached the door. The country boys, I said to Mark, and rolled my eyes. Get the door. These 2 guys were brothers, and the older guy, Glenn, must have been about 40. He was the money man. JD was his brother, simply the middleman. They both walk in shit-faced, talking loud and boisterous. I told Mark to get them in here and shut the door. Glenn and JD both had paper sacks in their arms. Glenn must have had $40K in the paper bag along with the 9mm. JD had a 12-pack of beer. I was thinking they were planning on staying for a while. As fast as the door closed, Glenn says, I gotta use the bathroom, and stumbled in. Dude's eyes were bloodshot. His legs fucked up, and he's got to get a hold of some morphine. He's probably going to get sick, JD told Mike and I. I turned up the TV to drown out Glenn's puking in the bathroom. Let's count the money first, and then Mike will go out to the van and get the weed. It's all pre-weighed, I told JD. We want to see the product first, JD responded. Looks like it's time to get the duffel bag, Mike, I instructed. 20 minutes later, Glenn came out and we finished our business. The way the 2 of these guys handled their business made me wonder. It didn't matter to them, I thought. They carried cash around in paper sacks and dressed like slobs. It was their way of playing the part. Within 3 days, all the cash was in. I now had another $1,000 to give Jorge to reduce my personal debt with him, and $3,000 in my pocket to live on. With my car fixed, Tom and I made our way back to Tucson. I had already made the deal to give the car to Jorge, and Tom was to bring the next load back on the bus. Since I had already made a successful run on the Greyhound, it was time for someone else to take the ride. This would be the first time that I would be there to oversee the deal, but I never lost faith that Mike Bell would fuck it up once the weed was in town. I'd seen the buyer's money, and it was real. This time the country boys wanted the whole 20 pounds. One deal, one buyer, making the money straight off the top. It took us 2 weeks, and Jorge finally came through with the weed. 23 pounds. In no time at all, I had the bundle wrapped and ready. The bus was ready to leave Wednesday morning and then arrived late Friday afternoon. If all went well, I was to fly up Saturday night and collect the money. Tom made the run without a hitch, like I knew he would. Since I wasn't there when the deal went down, I gave Mike and Tom $1,500 each cash as commission. Maybe I paid them more than the job was worth. It's just to put the price. It's just hard to put the price on people, their character and their honesty. It was more important for me to pay Jorge, and until I did my work was not done. Until I did, my work was not done. I didn't want to end up in the desert dead. Not wanting to be stuck in Des Moines, I decided to fly back to Tucson alone. Most of my time back in Tucson was spent sleeping or doing coke. The last weekend of June, Jorge had yet to come through with any more work. When he did, Mike and the country boys were calling him almost daily. I didn't want to take the bus again, so I decided to fly. This time I let only one person know what flight I was on, Mike Bell. Along with the 23 pounds this time, Jorge included 2 ounces of coke for me to sell, knowing I could cover the extra expenses off the money. My hands barely sweated as I checked the suitcase in. It had been 6 months since I flew out of Tucson. I figured I would be unnoticeable. Just do nothing to draw attention to yourself, Ray, and you'll be fine, I kept telling myself. When I got off the plane in Iowa, I told Mike I wanted to get a hotel room and not let anyone know I was in town. With dealing only with the country boys, the only people that needed to know my business were those that were involved. The deal would go down at 5 o'clock at Glenn's house, 25 miles out of the country. Mike had said this is where the deal went down the last time, and Glenn trusted us. When we got to the house, I gave them a sample of the blow. It was some of the badass shit, better than anything they had seen lately. You'll have to come back to town to get it, though, I said. They wanted to announce. In his gruffled voice, Glenn asked, how much? 1,500, I told him. We'll drive in after we do this, Glenn responded. As Glenn went outside to get his money, dude had it stashed in a chicken coop or under some junk. It didn't matter to me. The last thing I'd do was question where the heck he kept his money. Along with his money, dude had an arsenal of weapons. AKs, Uzis, M16s. The message was loud and clear, not to fuck with him. Mike and I laughed our asses off all the way back about these guys. This time, I didn't have to pay Tom, and I was able to reduce my debt again for another $1,000 with Jorge. I never stopped to calculate how much money I'd make, spending it as fast as I got it. My only calculation was how much money I had in my pocket. My goal was no longer to pay the Iowa City boys back. It was being the best weed smuggler that ever lived without getting popped. Was there such a thing? It's not something you can be recognized for unless you build an empire, get busted, and still have money afterwards. I never wanted to be an empire. I just wanted all my friends to go along for the ride. It had been 8 months since I made that first run, and I probably should have had 20 to 30K saved by now, but it was too hard to do. When you don't work a regular job, you spend your time spending money. The security I had was in the people knowing that I could turn weed into cash the minute I brought it into town and have plenty of money in my pocket. That's what my motivation was. It wasn't the money anymore as much. It was the rush I got working the deal from start to finish. Never greedy, always looking out for the other guy. would be my downfall, but that was years away. The only concern I had for any future was today, never tomorrow. All right. So there's chapter 16. Bombs away, bitch. Dropping bombs on your mom, blowing up like Vietnam. Bomb, bomb.